do that?
$40. Give me a moment to come off the boat. Skipper Dave will grab that door for you guys. Thank you so much for coming today. Thanks, everybody. Did I get it?
Watch your step. He'll take your tickets. Be careful stepping down. Watch your step.
Thank you very much.
Yes, welcome aboard. Watch your step.
Paul, party of 2.
Bus.
Welcome aboard.
Julia, party of 5.
Thank you.
Guys, fly out. Thank you.
Ready?
Have fun, guys.
We are
All right, a couple of quick things, folks. If you can remain seated at all times, please keep your hands inside of the boat, and we do have life vests underneath the seat. Well, welcome aboard. I'm your driver, Skipper Ned. It's a 3-hour tour. I'm just kidding. It's a 1-hour tour. 3 lakes and 2 canals and some of the best spots in Winter Park, along with a few of my favorites. Here we go. How about that? What a great day. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, right? Do we have any first-time riders? Okay, good. Me too. Every day's the first time. I like that. So we're already at our very first spot. It's called the Albin Polasek Sculpture Garden and Museum. Now there's 4 or 5 museums in Winter Park, and this is definitely one of the good ones. Mr. Polasek was a sculptor, so most of the works are in bronze, and they're scattered in the gardens and inside of his house, which is now a museum. And that location is coming up right here on the right, where we see all of these trees. Now this is also the premier location in Winter Park for weddings and receptions, and I've been to a couple there, and also I've been behind a couple over here. But also on the Polasek sculpture grounds is the Capon House. Now the Capon House is coming into view right here, this little gray home. It's one of the oldest homes in Winter Park. They do boutique events here, so smaller weddings and smaller receptions. But the interesting thing about the Capon House is that it was built on the other side of the lake, and how they got it from there to here is the most unusual way. But we'll talk about that when we come back through. Coming up first is Fern Canal. Sorry about that. Fern Canal was originally a creek, and it was dug out by the lumbering industry. They were taking down all the cypress, the pine trees, and the oak trees. Now it's illegal to cut cypress trees, but I'm old enough that I can remember people would cut the root system, which is called cypress knees. We'll see some of those. And they would turn them into clocks and sell them on the side of the road. The problem with that is when you cut the knees, you kill the tree. So right as we enter Fern Canal, if you look on the left, you'll see a whole bunch of those cypress knees. This should remind you of the Disney Jungle Cruise when we go in here. So there are my little cypress tree knees over there on that left shore. That is the above ground root system for the cypress tree. How neat is this? This canal is nice and straight and wide. This one is easy. When we get to the second one, it's very twisty and very tight, but it's really pretty too. So this is like the warm-up canal. There's 6 of them in total, but we go through the 2 of the largest ones. Now we're still sitting a little high from all the rain from the hurricane. So if you're above 5 foot, 5, maybe you want to lower your head down here just a little bit. Maybe 5'4", I don't know. Ah, maybe 5'2". Get your heads down. Now they call it Fern Canal because there's lots of ferns, but there's also a very unusual fern coming up in this tree. In this tree there grows the resurrection fern. Now the resurrection fern stays dried out, aired, and it almost looks dead. But as soon as it gets rain on it, it turns bright green. So all along this branch here, that looks like dead moss, that's actually resurrection fern. And about 95% of the time we see it, it looks like that. All right, on to Lake Virginia. There is the only alligator in Winter Park right there on the left. And the jumping bullfrog, we call him Jeremiah. Look at this beautiful lake. This is Lake Virginia. Wow. Now over on the right you can see a bird. That's an anahinga. That is Indian for snake bird. And if you see the way he's swimming, he looks just like a snake. His superpower is that he can swim under the water just like a fish. But his unsuperpower is he must dry 100% before he can fly. So lots of times you'll see them posing and they're drying out their wings before they can fly again. That was a little bonus. There's a little canal over here that leads to Lake Mizell. Lake Mizell is the clearest lake of all, and it's because it has springs on it. So the water pushes this way and it goes that way. If you're driving a boat or paddling a kayak, you definitely feel that there is a current or a flow to the Winter Park chain. Now the really interesting thing about Genius Canal is that when you go through it, you actually get smarter. Okay. Okay, that I made up. But on the left, that's funny, thank you. On the left, I cracked myself up, is the Martin House. This was originally built as the Winter Park Businessmen's Club. It was sold to Rollins, and it was the Rollins Music Hall up until the 70s when it went back into private ownership. Now the interesting thing about this home is when they expanded it about 5 years ago, they tore up all the grass and replaced it with AstroTurf. AstroTurf doesn't require fertilizer. Fertilizer is full of nitrogen. Nitrogen is the worst thing in the world for spring-fed lakes because it makes algae go crazy. So we love the remodel, but we really love that they're more concerned about the lake health too by taking up all that grass. Now these next 4 estate homes all have a very unique characteristic that they share, being on the Genius Peninsula. Look at these cypress trees, they're just gorgeous. There's another animal on the right if you didn't see the other one, but he's over here doing his snake bird thing before he's actually taking in massive amounts of air before he goes back under the water. Now these 4 homes, they have Lake Mizell due east and they have Lake Virginia due west. So that means every day they have a sunrise on their back porch and every evening they have a sunset on their front porch. But probably more unique than that is this giant empty lot up here, which is very unusual for Winter Park. To have 1, an empty lot, and 2, for it to be lakefront. But that's because someone already lives there, but not in a house. This is Genius Preserve, and it's reserved for the peacocks. The peacocks were brought over by the McKeans from India in 1918, and since then they've gone crazy. The population is now more than 200 birds. They wander throughout the seats, throughout the city, and you'll see them on the stop signs and on our bus stops. But at night, most of them come back to Genius Reserve, and this is where they roost. Now, once a year, the city will open up this beautiful chunk of land, and they lay out a 5K that's called Run Through the Trees, and that happens every March. You'll see some buoys over here as we cut through them, This is part of the slalom course for the Rollins water ski team. So they run through these buoys with the boats, and the skier swerves back and forth around the outside buoys.
Awesome.
Whoa. No charge. So here's a little pro tip, insider tip, whatever you want to call it. If you see those two square top roofs in the distance, that is the Albin. A very unique arrangement. It's a 4-star hotel that's owned by Rollins College. The profits come back to the financial aid department, and about 85% of the students at Rollins receive financial aid. The room, board, and tuition is just north of $72,000 a year. Awesome place to grab lunch or dinner, and you don't have to be staying at the hotel to enjoy either of those amenities. So this is the Rollins campus. You can get a good look at the university from this side. In the middle is the Knowles Chapel. That was designed by Ralph Graham. The chapel, the cafeteria, and the arts gallery are all open to the public. Rollins is a private university, but it's been intertwined with Winter Park. They both started around the same time. Winter Park in 1890. And then Rollins College, 1895. So just a few years after Winter Park was getting its foot settled, they opened up the college. Rollins always has a really good water ski team. I mean, you would expect that being on the water. But over on the left is their jump. Now, unfortunately, the gate is up today. That was a joke, too. But anyway, it's pretty spectacular to watch them practicing on that. Now, in front of us is one of the Rollins pools. There's 5 in total. But between us and the pool, there's a small trail. That's a Rails to Trails project that is open to the public. The old Dinky rail line came from Orlando, wrapping around the chain of lakes, and then stopping at Dinky Dock Park where the sawmill and the rail line extension were. So now there's a trail there that is open to the public. There's some people walking on it now, and you could access it for free at Dinky Dock Park. Now Rollins only has about 1,900 undergraduate students and 1,000 graduate students, so the classes are pretty small. And oftentimes in the good weather, you'll see the professors bring them outside. There's usually between 10 to 15 students, so they can fit in those small little impromptu classrooms. These buildings are all only about 5 or 6 years old, and this is all new student housing. The water ski team works out, but also if you're a student and you want to take a water-based elective, Rollins offers canoeing as well as sailing. And I was fortunate enough that I got to work here for about 10 years as the paddleboard professor. So yes, lots of good times at Rollins College. My average class size was probably about 20 students, so it was very popular to get out on the water, and of course it would be. Now there's the art gallery that I mentioned earlier. That one is open to the public, as is the Albin as well. We'll check out my class. So this is Dinky Dock, so much Winter Park history, and plus this was where my classroom was. We would meet here Tuesdays and Thursdays right on the beach. But when it all fell into disrepair from being a sawmill, the Rotary Club bought it and they turned it into this park that you see now with the city's help. Where there's people fishing, that is a fishing dock. Pretty cool. Right next to that, where you see those blue buoys, that is a designated swimming area. So these lakes are 100% safe to swim in. I've been in them hundreds of times. Where the jet ski is, that's called a soft launch, and if you have your own kayak or paddleboard or canoe, you can put it in there for free. If your boat is motorized, there have city ramps here that you can use for a very small daily fee. So Dinky Dock, something for everyone, places to sit, places to eat, and those amazing cypress trees. Now there's two more buildings on the Rollins campus. The first one is this condo that was refurbished about 20 years ago. It's called Sutton Hall. Now when they did that, they let the students redesign the pool area, and what you see now is the winning entry. It was wrapped in the palm trees, and where the blue chairs are, they call that the study dock. Now, I haven't seen a lot of books down there, but I have seen a lot of phones and a lot of suntanning going on.
Yeah.
The last home right next to them is the last part of the campus, and that would be the president's residence. So one of the perks of being the Rollins College president is you get this fine estate right here on the water. Our president just announced his resignation. Him and I are actually going to be switching jobs. No, I'm just kidding. He's not qualified to run a boat. No, I mean, I'm not qualified to run a university. These last homes here, these are all private condominiums. These are recent builds. The ones on the end, although they're dated, they predated the height restriction. So those are right at 5 stories tall. And from those upper units, you can see all 6 of the chain of lakes. So those units are highly sought after. As soon as they go on the market, they get snapped up. On the second part of the tour, we'll see some more homes, some done by our favorite architect, who would be James Gamble Rogers II. He came from a family of architects. Both his dad and his uncle were well known in Daytona and St. Augustine. James came down to Winter Park to open up his own shop and be his own man. He definitely left his imprint in Winter Park. There's about 100 buildings, churches, and homes that he designed that are still standing. We'll see a couple of those examples when we go on to Osceola and Lake Maitland. Hello, paddleboarders. Those are some native paddleboarders. Looks like the female version over there. Yes, awesome. And a male. And a dog. A dog on a paddleboard. That sounds like a good time. So going back through Fern Canal, just remember, keep your hands inside, please. Most of the foliage doesn't have thorns, but every once in a while one will have something sticky on it. Yeah. Most people know our travel times, but inevitably we get a little bump in the road.
Give us some room, man.
Okay. Let's try that again. right. Take two. Back into Venetian or Fern Canal. We do have a boat parade coming up if anybody's interested. Second Saturday in December. You can watch that from Dinky Dock Park. Little plantain tree coming up on the right. Got pretty beat up on that last hurricane. That's Bougainvillea over there blooming above the bridge. And just watching our heads as we go back underneath this Fairbanks Avenue Bridge. And if everybody would just wash your head for me, please. I've got ponchos, but not Band-Aids. All right. A couple of interesting trees coming up. This tree on the left, it's covered in what I like to call Florida tinsel, but this is Spanish moss. This tree estimated at over 300 years old by the Winter Park arborist. Across the canal is a southern pine that is estimated at 150 years old. So both of those were highly prized during our lumbering timeline. Those were the kind of trees that were being floated through the canals and over to the sawmill. So we're going to go on to Lake Osceola now. So there's a really interesting boathouse over here on the right. You guys can see it. It's got the double doors on it. If you use your imagination, pull up just a little bit more. Maybe it kind of looks like a carriage. Well, Mr. Brewer, the original owner, was a carriage accessory builder, and he built this home in Winter Park to keep an eye on the lumbering industry. The problem was getting his wife to come down to swampy Florida, so he enlisted James Campbell to redesign the home that was there into a replica of his New York home. So both the dock, you can see the plaque, and the home are on the National Historic Registry dating back to 1927. This home, the Palm, features 8 bedrooms, 7 bathrooms, and a second floor that's laid out as an entertainment ballroom. The house is also flipped around so the front of the house faces the back of the lake. The birdhouses over there are for our friends, the Purple Martins. They come every year migrating here. They stay 2 months and then they leave. The odd thing is no other birds use those homes except the Purple Martins. They are voracious appetite for mosquitoes, and at sunset and sunrise they fly in big patterns in the sky. That's the Purple Martin. This home on the right, this was designed by James Campbell Rogers. in the mid-60s, so kind of at the end of his career. The folks, the riches, wanted to be able to see the water as much as possible and feel like they were at the beach. So James selected this parcel. It actually sits on a peninsula out here on Osceola, and he used what's called a Bermuda-style home. It featured all those large windows that you see. He was able to give them a 360-degree view of the lake. Got good eyes, you can see on this dock over here, there's one of those anahingas, and he's in the process of drying out his wings. They must dry before they can fly. They lack the wax on their wings that makes them water repellent, so he's in the act of drying out. Over on our right is a cove. They like to call it Gator Cove. In the 70s, we had a pretty large population, and as we were switching from agriculture to residential, the city officials asked FWC to remove them. So north of us in Seminole County is a lake, Lake Jessup, and that's where all alligators are relocated to that are not harvested. So that is the fate of the Winter Park alligators, is that they were rehomed to Lake Jessup. Speaking of rehomes, we're going to go look at the largest home in Winter Park under construction. Construction for 2 years. They say it's got another 2 years to go. When it's done, it'll be 42,000 square feet. I'm speaking of this home that's right in front of us. A little hard to get a gauge on that, but both of these homes over here, the white and the orange roof one, were designed by James Campbell Rogers in the 50s, and both of these are about 6,000 square feet. So you could imagine 7 of the orange top home fitting inside of this guy. Now, if you've got really good eyes and you look in the left side of the backyard, they have a very special yard ornament back there. A full-size bull elephant. He's over here just underneath the tree. The Venetian Canal is a little tighter, so if you're sitting on an end seat, you might need to scooch in just a little bit. So just be mindful of the foliage that's leaning in. The home on the left was recently redesigned and renovated. Beautiful. You can see it has copper on the downspouts. That's a nod to the old stylings that were popular. Also gas-lit lanterns on the porch as well. there's a road on our right. It's called Alabama Drive. This road is relevant because if you wanted to go to a very awesome park that I'm going to take you by, Kraft Azalea Gardens, this road, Alabama, is the road that would take you there. Kraft Azalea Gardens is open to the public. There's no charge. There's free parking there as well. Kraft Azalea Gardens. Kraft Azalea Gardens. One of the best parks in Winter Park. Top 3, I would say. Plus, just the drive over to Kraft Azalea is pretty awesome. The neighborhood that you drive through, the homes are just beautiful to look at. And the thing I always love is that no two are the same. Definitely not cookie cutter neighborhood.
We are almost there to go to that park.
Very good.
So this is Lake Maitland. This is the largest lake of the chain. This lake is almost 500 acres in size, so it makes it big enough for another Rollins sports team, and that is the crew team. The crew team works out of the Bradley Boathouse, located right here on the right. It's a 2-story building. The top floor is all workout, gymnasium, equipment, weights, benches, cardio, and then the bottom, check it out, is set up as a storage, so all their crew boats fit in here rather nicely. So a really neat setup. That's the Bradley Boathouse right next to this park here, Kraft Azalea Gardens. And as I mentioned, one of the prettiest parks in Winter Park. Plenty of places to sit, places to eat, and little trails that wander through the park itself. But the special feature is this little neat photo spot coming up here on the right. Right here, this is called an etc., which is Greek for 6-column structure. And it's a little hard to believe that there's not a photo shoot going on. About 80% of the time we pull up here, someone's taking a picture. But anyway, open to the public. That's Kraft Azalea Gardens. Amazing place to have some quiet time. Some of the prettiest homes in Winter Park. There's a couple that are historic, but most of them are modern construction. We're going to go check out definitely one of the prettiest ones. Here we go, check out this beauty. People love this landscape backyard. I'm speaking of this one in front of us, just like a villa out of Tuscany. This home was built in 1925. Of course, it's been renovated and updated many times since then, but people love that backyard landscaping, the matching guest house, the matching pool home, and of course that double-decker boathouse. Now the home next to it was built in 1930, totally different architect style, but equally beautiful. And then, as I mentioned, the rest in this cove are more modern construction. Favorite over here on the right, we like to call it the Tom Hanks house. About 20 years ago, he was filming here with HBO for a documentary that was right here, became available for sale. These folks purchased it and tore it down. What you see there is the matching pool home to the main house. So the arches, the roof, and the chimney are all the same. But what's more interesting than the Tom Hanks house? Well, this little bridge up here on the right, it's public, one way, and it leads to the most exclusive properties in Winter Park. This is the Isle of Sicily. It's actually an island, 13 acres in size, with 12 estate homes on it, all about the size of this one on the right. The Isle of Sicily. Cypress tree with our ornaments on it is Dog Island. This may as well be another park. Winter Park has tables, benches, and they keep it clear of debris, visiting once a week to pick up the trash. So right where that boat is, that is Dog Island behind it. Very popular boating spot. If you leave from Dinky Dock, it's about a 5.5 mile trip, round trip. That came down to Orlando to help the Magic out. Most athletes live in Islesworth. That's where Arnold Palmer has a very exclusive neighborhood. But Horace Grant built this home behind the trees here. At the time, the largest at 22,000 square feet. You know it had to have some neat features if he's an NBA player. An indoor-outdoor swimming pool and a full-size indoor basketball court were some of the cool stuff. Now, it was located next to another James Gamble house. That big white one was built for the Packard family as their winter lodge. The Packard family, if you remember, they built motor cars in the 40s and 50s. The Packard. They later joined forces with Studebaker. So that is Lake Maitland. On the other side of that Dog Island is the city of Maitland. So this side is the city of Winter Park. So the two cities share this lake. Kind of unusual, but we all get along fine. We're going to go back into Venetian. Kind of interesting, you see these boat docks on the left up here. These originally were built for college professors. as kind of a perk. There's 3 of them here and 3 on this side, but they've since been bought and sold many times, so there's no home that's associated with those 3 docks or these 3 docks. They're just freestanding boathouses. And I always thought that was kind of an interesting arrangement too. You can see more of these beautiful cypress trees here. One of the few trees that can grow in the water or on the land. The roots don't rot out, and that's why they have them above the water here, these cypress knees.
Oh, what's that? Parking is a person.
Parking.
See?
We have a sign posted on each end of the canal that tells when we come through on the hour every hour. And we've been doing it since 1938, so most Winter Park residents or people that frequent the lake know that we are coming through here on the hour every hour. But other than that, we definitely run into other boats and other paddlers pretty regularly. Does that answer your question? Not really. That's why I'm not the #1 boat. Oh, gator. Oh, another gator. There's a lot of places where you can get by, like where these boathouses are, but there's a couple of spots where someone's going to have to back up. And that's when it gets interesting. Again, that road over there was Alabama Drive if you wanted to come see Craft Azalea Gardens at some time. On this boat dock on the right, this is the high water mark from Ian. So that was the hurricane that was 2 years ago. We had historic flooding in Florida, and it went over the banks. That was the first time since I can ever remember that the water was that high. Well, if it's a 100-year flood, I guess that makes sense because I wasn't here. That's called the Narrows. There's a whole 1.5 inches on each side. I always like the garage doors on that home over there. There's a little bit of that resurrection fern on this branch that goes over us that we're about to go under. All of this on this tree is all resurrection fern.
Good.
Watch your head, shoulder, head and shoulder. We're pretty clear now on this one. This one was a little low during the last hurricane. We had to wait like a week for the water to come down so we could get underneath it. some pretty orchids tied up in the trees here on the left. They're not blooming right now. So back out on Lake Osceola in just a moment. And there's another Mr. Rogers that is definitely part of the tour. And that is the most famous graduate of Rollins College, Fred Rogers. If you recognize the name, oops, Gator, he was a children's television host for many decades, and it was called Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Well, he went to Rollins College in 1947 on a music scholarship. The story goes he came down with his baby grand piano and quickly found out that the school dormitories were not set up for pianos. So the whole family moved down to Winter Park. His little sister also attended Rollins College, and they picked out this little starter home over here for the family to live in. Right over here, it's got the green ivy on the front of the house, and it's red brick. That is the Mr. Rogers house. Now, if you see that window in the middle, that's the one that he looked out of when he sang, "It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood." Okay, I made that one up too.
That's good.
Thank you. The singing or the joke?
Boat.
Both.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dock over here on the right, if you guys can see it. It's pretty beat up because it dates back to 1930. Originally, the Seminole Hotel 2 was located right behind this little beat up dock over here. Both the Seminole 1 and the Seminole 2 both burned down. But these folks, they've kept this dock. Now the roof is made out of materials you can no longer source, and that is cypress shingles. So you can't cut cypress trees, so this dock, on its last legs, but still representative of an era past, right over here. That's pretty good view. Remember back in the beginning of the tour, we went by the Polasek sculpture garden over here, and we saw the Capon House. Now the Capon House was originally located on this shore over here. Coming into view is a dark colored home with white trim on it. That was where the Capon House was. When those people moved in, instead of tearing it down, they donated it to the city. The city cut it in half, brought it down this hill on rollers, put it on a barge, took it to the other side of the lake, and came back, repeated the process. Over the course of 1 year, carpenters brought those halves together, and now if you tour the gardens, the Capon House is included in your ticket, and you can't even tell that it was cut in half, brought down a hill, put on a barge, taken across the lake, and put back together again.
Wow.
But also in this corner, the largest home in Winter Park, what was there was Casa Files. Now that is also a museum that's located 600 yards due west. Again, the city moved it instead of tearing it down. Definitely worth checking out, Casa Files. So we got the sculpture garden, Cornell Fine Arts Museum, the Albin. The last one is the Morse Museum. Mr. Morse was a founder of Winter Park, and one of his life's goals was to collect and accumulate all the Tiffany glass in the world in one place. Lucky for us, the Charles Morse Museum is located on Park Avenue, just about 2 blocks away, and it has the world's largest collection of Tiffany glass. How he got the glass, why he got the glass, all very fascinating and interesting. If you have time, it's somewhere between an hour to 2 hours is what you need to go through there. But that was the Morse Museum. Well, thank you guys so much. Y'all have been great, and so have I. I really appreciate it. We're open 7 days a week. We've been open since 1938, so we're really tired. No, so one of the oldest attractions in Florida, the 4th oldest depending upon who you're talking to. But we're here all every day but Christmas, so come down anytime you want a boat ride, we're here. Thank you guys so much. If you could do me one favor and stay seated until we are tied off, and when I pull that door open, then you guys are free to exit. Thanks again. I really appreciate y'all.
Thank you very much.
You are so welcome.
Say now, what do you want to say? Bol. Bolun, bagun bol.
You see that we are already through the end, and now we're gonna get out the boat.
Watch. Be careful.
Watch your step. Oh, thank you. Oh. Thank you guys. Thank you. Oh, thank you, buddy. I appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Yes, you're welcome.
You're awesome.
Oh, appreciate that.
We enjoyed.
Thank you.
Enjoy.